These 6 substances are worse than cyanide. Ethylene glycol. It's highly likely that you will have a bottle of this chemical lying around somewhere in your garage. Ethylene glycol, which is one of the main ingredients in antifreeze, happens to be a common household chemical that is used as a coolant in cars, and it's also unsafe. In the body, it is converted into glycolaldehyde by the very same enzyme that breaks down the alcohol that you would find in beer or wine. Once this occurs, the glycolaldehyde is later oxidized into a substance known as glycolic acid, which is about as nasty as it sounds. The acid then disrupts the body's delicate pH balance, and the kidneys and central nervous system are the primary systems that are immediately damaged by the antifreeze chemical. The unsafe chemical even has a notoriously sweet taste, meaning that kids, pets and even unwitting adults have been known to taste it by mistake and then suffer the negative effects. Batrachotoxin. Batrachotoxin, which is said to be found on the skin of certain frogs that are native to South America, happens to be one of the most potent chemicals known to man. It takes only 2 micrograms per kilogram to actually be fatal, which means that a fully grown man could lose his life by a dose no bigger than just a few grains of salt. It's also a neurotoxin, which means that it exerts its effect by simply preventing neurons from sending any electrical messages to one another, causing paralysis and, eventually, demise. Potassium cyanide. Potassium cyanide is a salt, but it is about as far from the type that you would use to season your fries as possible. It is incredibly toxic and has even gained notoriety for being the choice ingredient in certain pills for spies and soldiers all around the world. The nicest thing that can possibly be said about it is that it actually offers a quick demise. It also disables cellular respiration, the process by which cells make the energy, by inhibiting an enzyme that is essential in ATP production. ATP is also the primary energy currency of the human body, and the ability to make it is the key to living. Within just a few minutes of consuming potassium cyanide, victims will fall unconscious and will eventually breathe their last. Dimethylmercury. Dimethylmercury is a simple molecule that consists of a central mercury atom that is bonded to 2 methyl groups. The rather toxic effects of mercury are known to almost everyone, but few are aware that this liquid metal on its own tends to be fairly harmless. It cannot bind to any tissues in the body on its own and, thus, cannot be absorbed. However, the addition of the 2 methyl groups in dimethylmercury also means that the compound can be readily absorbed into the blood and transported throughout the body, where it can exert its toxic effect. The true harm of working with dimethylmercury came to light back in 1996 when chemist Karen Wetterhahn had accidentally spilled 2 drops of the chemical on her glove while she was busy working in the lab. Assuming that the latex would have prevented the chemical from coming directly into contact with her skin, she did not fret. However, after just a few months, she began to exhibit certain signs of cognitive impairment. Slurred speech, difficulty in thinking and fatigue eventually gave way to a coma. After almost 5 months, her coma finally ended in her demise. Chlorine trifluoride. Chlorine trifluoride, also called Substance N, was discovered by German scientists during WW2. This German party had initially intended to have their soldiers use this to melt through Allied bunkers, but after several years of research, they determined that it was just too unstable. It's incredibly volatile and will react with just about anything. It's been known to set fire to even glass, sand, rust and, of course, people. It can even also cause asbestos, one of the most fire-retardant substances known to man, to catch fire. The United States had briefly tinkered with chlorine trifluoride and had attempted to transport a ton of it in a specialized tanker. This had turned out to be an incredibly bad move. The tanker had crashed, and the substance had spilled right out onto the concrete floor of a warehouse and instantly set fire to it. It completely ate through the concrete, along with a good few feet of dirt and gravel beneath. Dimethylcadmium. Even worse than dimethylmercury, dimethylcadmium is said to be considered by many chemists to be the most toxic chemical known to man. Because cadmium is much lighter than mercury, the organic compound is said to be more volatile. It is instantly absorbed into the bloodstream and rips apart all the organs that need the highest supply of blood, including the heart and the lungs. If, by some miracle, a person does manage to survive the initial exposure, the harm certainly isn't over. Dimethylcadmium is also highly carcinogenic, meaning that it causes cancer. It also bursts in water and eventually decomposes into dimethyl calcium peroxide. It is then no wonder that the majority of the world's chemists absolutely refuse to work with it.